Welcome to Minsk, Belarus, and I'm going to give you a reality check today. What is life really like in the capital of this city, Minsk? I'll give you a chat about lifestyle, freedom, bureaucracy, friendship, dating, food, etc, etc. So I want to give you a realistic view, right? Because quite frankly, unless you spend a lot of time here, you really have no clue what's going on in this country. So right now, I'm on a diet, right? So I've dropped a lazy 10 kg. I've got a few more to go. So instead of getting a taxi to the restaurant to meet my friends, I want to walk. And you guys get the benefit of that. So I'm going to talk to you guys about the reality of Belarus. Let me turn you around first. And I'll change the zoom a little bit here. Back out to somewhere near natural. All right, so what's it like here? First thing I would say, as a foreigner, with foreign income or foreign wealth or what have you, it's very comfortable. It's a lot like living in Europe. Indeed, it is Europe. And your lifestyle will be very similar. Plenty of restaurants, cafes, lots of activities, lots of activities. They're very active, these people. And not just kind of like sport or whatever, but including festivals, activities, not just Soviet stuff like Bolshoi theater and ice skating and whatever, but also paddle, dare I say it, it's here as well in a big way. And then lots of just kind of one-off events and that kind of stuff. Belarusians really love this, so you can, if you get amongst it, and look, not many foreigners do, but if you want to, and you can work out what's going on, you can have a very active life here, very European life. So it's quite livable, especially as a single man with not much responsibilities. It's very livable. So you'll notice this is about to come up the Kemerovka market. I'm going to walk this way for a couple of blocks. I'm going to a place called Druzia, which of course is the plural of drug, which of course is friend, or male friend more specifically. Drug is, or drug is male friend. Of course, when the word ends with a k, it becomes a g sound. Long story. And padruga is a word for female friend. So they even gender the friends. So this is Druzia. So I presume it's a pretty blokey place. There'll be four of us blokes, foreigners there. And it's a bit of a burger place, I think. A bit of a beer house, burger place. So when I get there, I'll be very calorie conscious. So it's a very European lifestyle here. In terms of like freedoms and this kind of stuff, people quote this term freedom of speech, which is a very selectively used concept. So with relation to Belarus versus the West, right? So obviously in Belarus, but the basic stereotype we'll start off with is in Belarus you haven't got freedom of speech. In the West you have. Right? That's level one, entry level. Level two will be you don't have freedom of speech in Belarus, nor do you have it in the West. And then level three will be looking a bit more detail about what really is freedom of speech and in what way do you have it. And of course, the advocate of freedom of speech is always the underdog, right? The establishment or the elite, they're the ones trying to control you and your speech. So in a place like this, unless you're trying to seriously have a crack, this is Kemerovka market, you'll know this place well, look at that, huge inside. It's all fruit, meat, veggies, nuts, seeds, cheese, all kinds of stuff. I fucking love this place. It is really underrated. Do live near here. It's a good idea. So here, unless you're trying to have a real crack at trying to overthrow the government, you kind of can say whatever you want. I mean, if you want to go, make a big scene and say how fucked up Belarus is or whatever, you could find yourself in trouble. If you've got a big enough audience, that's possible. So I guess in this context, government kind of has power. Whereas in the West, you can criticize the government on some level. It kind of depends a bit, but I guess there's more leeway to potentially do it. Again, depends on the situation. But then, of course, in the West, you have these political lobby groups that are very powerful. Anything from feminism to LGBT, Black Lives Matter, and so forth. So these kind of self-called social justice lobby groups, they control the speech. They have the most power. They control the speech, right? They tell you what you can and can't say. Blah, blah, blah. So, whereas here, these topics, you can talk about these topics. And people are very patient. One thing I like about Belarusians, they're very patient. They love a good debate. They'll patiently listen to you. Seldom will you get ranting. Sometimes you do. Especially the ones who have been really indoctrinated with the Western stuff. They're always the ranters. But seldom, seldom. It's much more common people calmly think things through, talk them through, listen patiently, and swap views. It's quite civil. Russians do this a bit too, to be honest. Not as much as Belarusians. Belarusians are really calm in this kind of, just discussion thing. There's a girl here. Man, she's like 60 years too early for this. Interesting. I just waved at her, but she can't wave back. She waved, spasiba. I'm like, Mel, I just waved at her. I've set her up to wave and then scare all the pigeons. And they're going to shit everywhere. But she was still lovely and gave me a little wave. It's bizarre to see such a young girl playing pigeon lady. All right, let's go into here. So yeah, freedom of speech, again, just kind of depends who has the power. At the end of the day, you're not free to talk about those with the power, whether it's honest or dishonest or whatever. So this is a rule for life, man. You can go anywhere, even in religious societies. You can't say bad things about the religion, right? So whoever has the power controls people through many ways. One of them is what they can and can't say, and creating a strong narrative to support their beliefs, or whoever's their, whatever, government here, lobby groups in the West, religious figures or religion in more religious-based countries. So yeah, the idea of freedom of speech, not freedom of speech, it's technical. It's a bit more technical. It involves being a bit of a grown-up, which can be a struggle sometimes. All right, gonna go one more block this way. So this is a second-hand clothes store, quite famous here in Belarus. And it's really interesting because we have these sort of things in the West as well, right? They're very popular to get kind of unique items, and this is kind of a similar thing. But here, so when I've been to one in the West, often, you have like a fancy dress party, everyone goes to the second-hand store, tries to find some, whatever, an outfit. Here you can do the same. But in the West, you pay per item. Here, you pay per kilogram. So, light t-shirts are very cheap and jeans are very expensive. So you can see today is Zavodnya. This is 35 rubles for a kilogram. Today must be Tuesday, I believe. What was the list telling us? It changes a lot. I think they get stock on a certain day and it's like 65 rubles a kilo. And then it drops down to maybe 15 on the last day. There's almost nothing left and nothing anyone wants. You can kind of see there a little bit. So for I don't know what the average, I think jeans weigh less than a kilo. The average t-shirt probably only 100, 200 grams. Anyway, interesting way of doing it, very market orientated. You can get the best stuff, but you'll pay your 65 rubles a kilo, which probably isn't that different to brand new, to be honest, depending on how much stuff weighs. Or you take the slops at the end for 15 rubles, which is, $4 or $5. All right, so you've got some interesting, I'll just point out a few things here. You can really see on these buildings, you really see how there's no uniformity in the presentation. See what I mean? You got different kind of patterns here, and what's the end game of this area here, for example, is it looks really ugly, right? So there's no kind of forced uniformity. Like in Australia, you would have that people can't add something to the outside. You can see the different window frames, they're brown here and white here, and then no windows at all there, and you see how it ends up looking quite scrappy by the time you add in some faded paint. It's not too old of a building. I mean, I think those brown brick buildings are maybe the 80s, I think. It's not a super old building, but just not very well maintained there, right? You'll know this one here, Yeveropt, very famous supermarket / convenience store here in Belarus. Here's an interesting looking building too, with these circle rooms. How crazy is that? Same kind of problem there. You can see some of these frames have been painted, some haven't. Some up there are yellow. So it kind of makes it look scrappy than it needs to look, already with that kind of very time-specific aqua kind of colour. So anyway, so freedom of speech is a big topic, and again, here you can kind of have these open discussions, and there is no side that ultimately has the final say, whereas in the West there kind of is the side that has the final say and decides what you can and can't say on those topics. But even in the West, I mean, if you did try to have a crack at the government, it kind of depends who it is. You know what I mean? Like right now, I don't know when I release this video, but right now it's August 2024, so you got the American election coming up, and you had Donald Trump is a very short price favourite. It's gone about 50-50 on the betting markets now. Ethereum has that, what's it called? Is it Poly Market, I think it's called? Has like a sports betting thing on it. And now even, if anything, Kamala Harris is kind of, slight favour, I think. But you can see how the media just really jumps on her and really pushes her in shameless kind of Soviet-style extremism. So you kind of don't have freedom of speech in politics on some occasions, you know what I mean? So it's kind of complicated. It's kind of complicated, unfortunately, in the West. But anyway, and of course, these laws here and in the West, they're used selectively, a lot of these laws. They're designed to give a lot of flexibility in who you can punish and who you won't. You know? That's the point of them. So that's how it is. Like here, for example, I mean, there's some people who have been involved in trying to overthrow the government and been connected to outside forces, the 3-letter acronym I'm talking about. Like they might get done. Like I've heard people getting done not too long ago, linked back to 2020 protests, and they're done on like tax fraud and this kind of stuff. You know what I mean? So they kind of get them on something else. And I think in the West this can kind of happen as well. You kind of have a situation where they just want to get someone, and they'll just kind of throw whatever they can at them in order to get them. So freedom of speech. It's a nice concept, and it's definitely one designed to disperse power across a society. And that if you're talking about it a lot, there's probably a problem with power in the society. Would be my interpretation, anyway, as you wish. What else can we talk about? So that's lifestyle, and these apartments, honestly, they're bloody pokey little things. If you lived in the average apartment in Minsk, you probably wouldn't be that comfortable, to be honest. A lot of the old Soviet ones still exist, and as I say, they're a bit pokey. But I'm Australian, so I'm used to kind of big houses and more space. But it would be pretty rough being in a 40 square metre apartment trying to raise a kid or two with a wife. Probably wouldn't be great fun. But of course, if you have a bigger budget because you source your income from outside the country, or you have a very high paying profession here, then of course you can go to the higher end and get bigger, nicer, better equipped apartments. So that's something to consider. Parking is also something to consider here as well. Reality is there's not a lot of parking. New buildings there are, but older buildings, sometimes parking can be a real problem. All right, so how will someone with a Western mentality get along with Belarusian people? This is interesting, because they do have a different mentality. That Soviet training is very different to what we have. Ooh, what should I do here? I want to go right, but I wanted to cross there first, but it looks like they're doing something, so I'll turn right here and I'll follow these people. Some serious construction on both sides. They're trying to pretty this area up, it looks like. Oh wow, they're getting right in there. Right at Dodo's Pizzeria, takeaway, Dostavka. So can you get along with Belarusian people? This is a tricky question. As I say, the fundamentals, and when you're in this kind of international environment for long periods of time and really get to know people well, you kind of see how people end up sticking with their own, and they kind of have to. You know what I mean? Like, we can all be friendly on the surface to some extent, to different levels. Oh shit. Hopefully I can turn right up here where the cement is. Let's see. But you kind of see people tend to gravitate towards their own most of the time. There's some, like I have, actually I do have several Belarusian friends that I'm quite close with, and even other non-Anglo countries too, to be fair. A couple of French guys I'm quite close with and whatever, but I do notice that people do tend to kind of go towards their own in the longer term, with some exceptions. There are exceptions, of course. Man, they're doing some serious works here. So, can you, as a Westerner, get along with Belarusians? It's a tricky one, because what you'll find at the start, and this is probably what gives people a bit of a false signal here, is that Belarusians, their culture is you must be super polite on the outside. Even if they hate you, you would never know. If someone likes you or hates you, you'd never know. They just act the same way. Like, and every culture's like that to an extent, to be fair, but here it seems to be on steroids, this concept. And definitely what's normal and what's valued is very different between kind of Anglo and Soviet cultures. And definitely the novelty of a foreigner will make a lot of them very friendly as well. There's certainly this sense of, I must be on good behaviour to give a good impression because there's a foreigner here. There is this kind of thing that happens here, quite frankly. But as far as I see, most foreign guys aren't particularly close with any Belarusians. This is what I see. There is a bit of a lack of connecting there, as a general rule. And of course, anywhere you go, if you're a bit, past 30, it's difficult to make meaningful friendships, right? Like, let's just try to put some context around this. But I think, the cultural gap's quite significant, especially as it pertains to dating. It's really quite different. The concept of SMV, everyone talks about SMV, sexual market value, which is kind of works in most countries as far as I see. Even arranged marriages usually try to match up SMV by the parents and family trying to do the best they can for their kid. But here it doesn't quite seem the same. So, if you're in, for example, a Western country and you want to do a bit better for yourself in the dating scene, you can, get a bit fitter, buy some better clothes, this kind of stuff. Take up a few new hobbies, get a better job, whatever. You can kind of push up your overall value, and you'll find that girls that are a bit higher value will start to be a bit more interested in you, right? This is kind of how it works. In general, I think it's a reasonably sound base case, but here it kind of isn't. It's a weird one. It kind of is for girls. I think if a girl pretties herself up a bit, it definitely improves the quality of guy she can get. That's, I think, definite. But for a guy, it doesn't seem to matter too much. You kind of notice that there's no kind of default attraction, especially younger girls who haven't really gotten a clue in terms of dating relationships. It's kind of a weird situation. Here in Russia and Ukraine, they're all a bit similar, but Belarus is the most extreme, I would say, in this regard. I think Russia and Ukraine are kind of a hybrid Soviet, hybrid Western, where SMV does count still a bit. Whereas here it doesn't seem to count much at all most of the time for most girls. So what you do get here is a whole lot of real mismatches in terms of appearance. So in Australia, if you're, let's use numbers. So if you're a 6 and you're a guy, right, and you marry a girl who's an 8, everyone's like, oh fuck, he's done well for himself. They're like, oh yeah, I have. But there's something fucked up with that girl, right? Probably, not all the time. But you probably know that there's something else balancing things out. Or if the other way around, whatever, it's like, the guy must have something, right? But generally, couples match up based on looks in particular, don't they? I mean, seldom do you see really unusual matches. I mean, as long as you kind of look similar and get along okay at a young age, you tend to get together, right? That's just how it works. In Western countries, high school and whatever. Even university, same kind of thing. But here it doesn't quite work that way. You just notice that particularly the more attractive girls tends to be with any old slob. It's really interesting. And it seems to be a mixture of kind of what she can get from him. It's interesting actually. As clever as I've tried to be here and work out what's going on, I keep coming back to quotes that local people have given me. I remember I'd been here for about a month and I was at a party, and this young guy, Belarusian guy, who was, I think, only 18, 19, very smart fella, very switched on. He said to me, Belarusian girls only want you for what they can get from you. And I thought, that's a little bit grim, mate. I'm sure it's not that bad. I mean, you got thoughts and gold diggers everywhere, blah, blah, blah. But fast forward some time and he's pretty much right. More or less. It's not just what you can get from you in terms of money and goods and services. It's not that simple. It's not that gold diggery at all. Some young girls are really quite sweet and whatever. But there is very much a cultural norm of surface, I think. That the balance of looks disparate. I don't know how to speak English. Disparity? Yeah, disparity. Disparity that looks might have sometimes is made up for in other ways. And sometimes not always as well, just depends. But mainly not. So you kind of got a different dating culture. Instead of being kind of SMV based and both men and women just having a natural interest in each other, here women, until they've had a bit of dating experience, had a boyfriend or whatever, they don't seem to really be that interested in men and don't seem to get the concept of SMV. It's an interesting situation here. And as I say, I think there's an element of that in Ukraine and Russia, but Belarus seems to have it as a default. And a lot of other countries, even like Baltic countries, people will get together much younger and have boyfriends and whereas here, a lot of girls at 19 have never had a boyfriend. It's just this kind of, dare I say it, kind of asexual, not sure what to do with men, not sure what they are kind of thing, which is pretty unusual. And nonetheless, that's kind of what it's like here. That's a really big difference between what we're used to in the West. Especially in the last 10 years, we had the pickup artist mystery method, dress a certain way, say a certain thing, act a certain way, blah, blah, blah. That kind of evolved in its own little way. And then this has kind of seemed to come to this ultimate situation of you've got to be of actual value instead of bluffing it. So this concept of SMVs kind of come in and became the default. Everyone believes it. There's no competing ideology. Fuck me, how am I going to get through here? My goodness, I'm going to look left here. I have to go left here. So I think, I'm going to guess this is it. That's worked out fine. Yes, that's a little odd and takes some getting used to, and I think, certainly you do find that guys who come from servitude cultures settle in here better in that respect. Chinese guys, for example. Or guys that are just here for transactional stuff, kind of Arabs and Turks and what have you. Kind of what you find. Or even Latin American guys, they're used to a little bit of that. Depends exactly the situation. They'll be more pragmatic, I guess. So that's kind of dating differences. And of course, you do have a power battle on both sides in that regard, right? So it's a bit complicated. Alright, so back to the lifestyle thing. You can see these scooters everywhere. And the good thing about Belarus is that the pavements are generally well cared for. This one's a little bit rough, but they're in fairly good repair and quite wide, so it's quite conducive to scooter usage. What else have I covered? I think restaurants is a big one, because look, I go to restaurants, I reckon anywhere from 0 to maybe 3 times per week, but honestly it probably averages out to 1 or maybe 2, especially now that I'm really dieting hard. I'm generally staying away from them, but I am going to nick off soon, so I'm kind of just hanging out with a few people a bit more than I usually would because of that. So I'm eating out a bit more than I usually would, but a lot of guys here that I know only eat out, right? So if you're in that space, the range and quality of restaurants matter a lot, and you probably, compared to Western countries, you probably won't get quite the wide range of restaurants, international restaurants here. I mean, it was only 10 years ago they started getting in anything other than stolovas, So I'm going to go across here. I reckon that might be it there, actually. I'm fairly confident it is. Actually, I think I can see my mates there. Yeah, they're looking over at me. So I'll finish up. What did I say? Yeah, food. Yeah, look, restaurants here are still got a fair way to go. There's some good options though. Some good, hipster shit going on. Hipsters are useful that way. They bring in the better quality, more interesting food. A lot more Chinese popping up as well. A lot more Chinese people here, so Chinese restaurants follow. But in general, definitely not the range or quality. But there are some quality restaurants still, and a lot bloody cheaper than the West, that's for sure. And ultimately prices, I mean, you can rent, look, it might be a bit of a bushkiri and not exactly the best location, but not too bad. Yeah, $350 a month US, $400 a month. Depends exactly where and what level of Remont you're gonna have. Remont is just like renovation repair. But yeah, you can go up to maybe 800 for a better, more elite kind of building. Maybe 1,000 getting quite big, but look, for most average guys, 500 will probably get you something pretty decent. That's where I'm going to be this evening. Druzia. Oh man, I'm going to have to walk back. I'll tell you what, because I'm going to have a really dirty burger with really dirty fries cooked in really low quality oil. So I might make another video in 2 hours time when I roll myself back to the metro station. What else did I say to you guys? Talk about food. Oh yeah, weather's weather's a bit of a thing. Actually, you know what? I'll be a bit more controversial. Let's talk about spies. Can you imagine? I'm going to talk about spies. There are spies here, but they quickly determine whether you're of any use or not. And if you're clearly not up to something, they're not going to bother you. You know what I mean? They're not just picking on people to be assholes. It just doesn't work that way. Some of the stuff you read on the government websites about randomly arresting people, it's like bullshit. It really is. They're only interested in people who are causing a problem. The last thing they want is an international scandal, randomly bloody arresting foreigners. Right? They don't want that. They don't want it. So typically what will happen is that they'll either ask around about you. So they might go to your landlord. They might go to, if you're at university, go to your teacher. There were some agents there about 2 weeks ago at my university, checking paperwork and whatever. A few people, they just want to check, they just want to check. There's an election coming up next year, about 6 months or so away, and they just want to check. That's all it is. And I've had quite a few mates where they've just been befriended by a random dude. It's always around middle-aged, very well-spoken, perfect English guy, strikes up a conversation. And you kind of know what they're doing. It's kind of obvious what they're doing. That's about as far as it goes. I haven't heard of anyone having anything tapped properly. But yeah, it's as long as you're not actually up to something, i.e. overthrowing the government in some way, they're just not interested. Like they have, I was going to say they have finite resources, but they act like they don't, man. I tell you what, they are thorough. Like when they're investigating something, they are thorough. They will use the resources to check what they're checking. This is one thing I see here. Whereas maybe to the north, in Russia, they might not care as much, right? Unless it's something really serious. So that's changing now as well with the recent events. That shooting a few months ago. They're definitely changing the entry procedures when entering Russia. That'll do us. Do I talk about weather? You probably know the weather. Actually, I'll tell you one thing. Look, it's a beautiful sunny day today, right? It's really a nice day. Minsk summer's really nice. It's sunny, blue skies, everyone's in a good mood. But mate, those winters, if you look at the data around how many grey days there are, shit, you could go through the winter and not see the sun for a month, yeah? Combine that with some wind, some -10, small pokey apartment, blah, blah, blah. Like it's yeah, you can see why people who live in these climates are usually pretty depressed. Whether it's here, Russia, Sweden, whatever. It just seems that you have this kind of depression, chronic negative mentality can kind of creep in. High depression rates, that kind of stuff kind of creeps in. You can't really get around it, to be fair. It's just kind of how it is. So I haven't found it too bad, the 2 winters I've been here. The first winter was good. Second winter, it was a bit like, fucking hell. Can it stop snowing, please? You know what I mean? Can it be less windy? So yeah, the winters are pretty rough. Like staying here long term, geez, I don't know. You'd want to set your life up well, that's for sure. That's what I would say. So I hope this has helped you a bit. Obviously, I'm contactable by email if you want to chat some more. in some kind of formal consultation, or I can go a little bit deeper. Because of course, this is YouTube, obviously, and everyone can hear me, so I have to put kind of barriers on both sides to exactly what I can say and how I say it. This is kind of obvious, I would imagine. So anyway, I'm getting a bit hungry in my dieting state, so I'm going to go inside and grab a dirty burger. Thanks for listening, folks. Catch you later.
Okay, it seems I finally need a new phone. I ordered this